Hi there, welcome to this episode. My name is Russ on board sailing vessel Tautog, currently located in Jacksonville, Florida. It's Monday the 26th of September, and we're waiting for this hurricane to hit us, making all reasonable preps, I'll put it that way. I don't think it's going to be that bad for us here in Jacksonville. The whole idea of us being in a hurricane hold is that statistically we never take a direct hit. We're not taking the direct hit based on the models, but we do expect to see tropical storm force winds, and I'm thinking, steady winds in the 30s, maybe gusting in the 40s, a lot of rain. That's what we're expecting the next few days. And while I'm preparing for that, and I've pretty much dogged off on projects, but while I'm preparing for the hurricane, I thought it's also a good time to prepare myself to get underway, because right on the heels of the hurricane's passage, I'm leaving the marina, 3 weeks at anchor, more or less, and then I'm going. So the question is, where am I going? So let's take a look at the charts, okay? Two is a set of charts, and they're both the same scale, and together they show us the picture from Florida and down to the Eastern Caribbean, down to South America. For many people in America and other countries, throughout their entire working life, they have dreamed consistently of sailing in the tropics. So this is the tropics. Now technically the tropics means you're south of the Tropic of Cancer and north of the Tropic of Capricorn. So that's what tropics means. And we can talk about where that is exactly later. But when we talk about sailing tropical islands, people think Bahamas. They think the Turks and Caicos. They think Puerto Rico. They think the Virgin Islands, and all the way down the Leeward Islands and the Windward Islands. And that's my dream too. I've always wanted to sail in the tropics, and I've always wanted to go through Panama and continue west out through the Pacific and visit every single South Pacific island that I wanted to see, even if it took me 10 years to do it. That's what I've wanted to do for all of those nights on night shift and all of those outages where I've worked every day for 40 days and that sort of thing. The light at the end of the tunnel was always, one day I'm going to sail away. And my friends, I'm on the verge of doing that now. After the hurricane season is over in a few weeks, I'm shoving off and we're going. And so the question is, where are we going to? Well, the first objective is to make it here to Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands, whether they be the Spanish, U.S., or British Virgin Islands. Later I would continue down the Leeward and Windward Islands. And it does beg the question to get from where I'm at, which is up here in Jacksonville, Florida, all the way across this ocean is about 1,200 miles down to this area. What's the best way to do it? Well, there are two general schools of thought. One is to go on the open ocean route out to the east and then come south into this area. And the other way is to go through the Bahamas, anchoring every night if you want, and just taking 2 months if you want to work your way down to Dominican Republic, and then you hop along the coast until you get to your target. So why are there two different ways? Well, we need to take a look at pilot charts first. Now, so pilot charts are something we've looked at before in the channel, and they do provide some pretty cool information. This is the Caribbean and Gulf of Mexico page of the pilot charts. The key information that I'm interested in is that the ocean currents, marked in green, the wave heights, marked in red, and the wind roses. The wind roses, I suppose, are the most important thing to look at first. So let's take a look at a windrose, and we're going to take a look at a windrose about right over here, northeast of the Bahamas. Okay, so looking at this windrose, what's it telling us? It tells us that number tells us how many days in a given month the area is completely calm. So 3 days for the month of November, you can expect calm conditions. I mean, completely calm. But most of the time, you can see the wind with the longest line is indicating the direction from which the wind will usually come. And the length of the line indicates the proportion at which it does that. So the wind is almost assuredly going to be out of the north or the east in November of any year in this area. And let's just let that sink in for a minute. And the little tick marks, each one of these complete tick marks on both sides is 10 knots. So the wind is normally going to be about 20 knots from the northeast or 20 knots from the east. Yeah, so what most people do when the winds are out of the northeast or the east and you're trying to proceed southeast from the USA, if the winds are northeast, then you can pretty much sail a beam reach with the wind right on your port side and just sail southeast, and head for the Caribbean. But you need to make progress easterly as much as you can. So what a lot of people will say, a lot of the delivery captains and a lot of the other folks will say, all you do is get as far east as you possibly can until you get to longitude 65. They call that going east until you get on I-65, and then you can turn south. And with extremely high confidence, you know you're going to have winds out of the east or northeast. And if you look at the wind roses, the closer you get to your target, you can see that 40% of the time the winds are going to be directly out of the east. 32% of the time it's going to be out of the northeast. So your chances of getting easterly winds go up, up, up the further you proceed south. A reality check. It's not always going to be a drink in your hand with the umbrella and sailing into a beautiful sunset by a tropical beach where everything is happy and everybody's drinking and having fun and dancing and the girls are topless in grass skirts. Yeah, that might happen somewhere, but the reality is the ocean and the weather can be pretty angry servants of us. We can use them to get where we want to go, but they can be very tough adversaries as well. I mean, heck, right now, as I speak, we're preparing for a hurricane to hit, and so the weather and the sea, they rule the day. But you use a pilot charts to gauge what the statistical chances of conditions are going to be. Okay, and that drives a couple of books that have been written. So I'm looking at two books. This one is called World Cruising Routes. It's by Jimmy Cornell. The other book is called Passages South by Bruce Van Sant. If it was easy, if the winds were always going to be out of the north and the west, then everybody would just slowly sail downwind to get to the Eastern Caribbean. And then, when they're in the Eastern Caribbean, then they can go straight south, and run down to Trinidad and follow the trade winds then the rest of the way. But the winds are hardly ever going to be out of the northwest in the USA. Certainly, the further south you go, the more the trade winds are going to drive your actions. And the trade winds are almost always going to be out of the east. So you let that sink in, and what it tells you is at some point, even if you get northerly winds, you can maybe manage your way through the Bahamas, but at some point you're going to be down here and you have to go that way. And if you have to go this way, but the wind is going this way, it is going to be a tough slog for the last 500 miles of your trip. So in general, let me summarize the findings of these books for this route. So the route I'm on, Jimmy Cornell calls that route AN-116. AN-116 is Florida to the Eastern Caribbean. Okay, and generally he says it's really pretty simple. You do it in November or you do it in May. That's one thing. Get out of hurricane season before the winter season, and that leaves you two choices. Wait till winter's over and then do it before hurricane season. That tells you it's May. And wait till hurricane season's over, but before the winter gales start, and that's November. If you go outside those times, you're risking it. Okay, so that's one thing to remember. November is the right time to go. So I need to be positioned to make the jump in late October, and that's what I'm aiming to do. And then the question is, which way do you want to go? You either go on the open ocean side, bypassing the Bahamas and sail direct for Puerto Rico, and you can, or you go through the Bahamas and just kind of island hop your way down. So, two ways to do this. I can't even tell you what I've decided. I absolutely want to be in the Virgin Islands and in the Puerto Rico area and the south coast of Puerto Rico all winter. But if it takes me 2 months to get there, I'm okay with that too. There's some security in mental security that you get by going through the Bahamas, because you're almost always close to land. You can anchor in almost any location. It's always quite shallow unless you're in the deep spots, but you can be in shallow water for anchoring very quickly, certainly within a day. So there's some value there. Plus, the Bahamas are beautiful. There's a lot of gorgeous beaches, a crystal clear water. It is just beautiful. So that's pretty tempting, to just take it easy and just slowly chug my way through the Bahamas. It'll teach me patience, which I don't always have. And you slowly work your way through. The only rub is if you get all the way to the bottom of the Bahama chain into the Turks and Caicos, and you're looking directly at easterly winds, now what are you going to do? You've got to buck against those winds for another 400 miles, which is not fun. It would be better to be way out at sea going south into the Puerto Rico area, and that's a decision I have to make. Okay, so I'm not too worried about that, but we'll make that decision over the next couple of weeks. I'll get busy with the rest of my hurricane preps. Not much to do, and we're going to bunker down the next couple of days and get this video uploaded, and then when the storm's over, I'm heading out to Green Cove Springs. So not too worried about that immediate future. The storms come, the storms go, and I've been through a few already with this boat, and I'm sure we'll be fine. Yeah. So, if you have any comments or questions about the brain things that are happening up here and the way I look at this and the way I'm trying to do my planning, I'd like to hear it. Because sometimes a person who is a distant observer might be the person with the best questions and the best things that stop me and give me pause and make me take a look. So big picture is, target is the Puerto Rico, U.S. Virgin Islands area, and the question is how to get there. It's the slow way through the Bahamas, through all the islands, anchoring all the time, or just going directly on the ocean side, bypassing all these islands, possibly having a more direct route, possibly having better wind conditions, and almost certainly a lot faster overall. So that's what we're thinking is, and I appreciate your comments, so please get them in, and I'll be able to reply for the next few weeks. So take care, everybody. Bye. Well, I'm very happy to have the new floor done. Nice and shiny, yes, and no more holes, no more temporary patchwork. But the real benefit that I get from having done all that work last year while I was in Mexico sweating away cleaning the bilge is this. Storage, baby. So I have the entire area under that area, all the way at the bottom. I have that storage, and I have everything here. And I haven't shown you this. Under the galley floor, I can store bottles of water. That's about all I can pack in there. I could probably put some small things on top of those waters, but in general, I do get asked a lot, why didn't I buy a more expensive boat? Why didn't I get a newer boat? And the reason would be things like this. An older boat provides better storage, and better bilge access. If you were trying to run hoses and wires and things like that in a modern boat, it would be very, very difficult. But today's challenge is to get all this stuff put away. In fact, I'm planning on doing that in the next hour. Doesn't fit. Oh my God. It ain't gonna go. Wow. That's a full freaking load. Although I do have space here.